This is the 86 Podcast, where we're talking everything hospitality with your host, Richard White. All right, let's get started. Well, here we are. We are live with the 86 Podcast with your host, me, Richard White. And this is our very first episode, so we're going to just see how it goes. I've got Jay Ashton with me. I'll introduce him in a second. But the 86 Podcast, what we're trying to do here is create a voice for Canadian food service, talk about all sorts of things Canadian food service, and see where the conversations lead us. I've been in this industry since I was a kid, and it's my passion. And so after meeting great guys like you, I have decided to launch my own podcast in the 86 brand that I own. So very excited about that. This is our first episode, as I said, and we have 5 episodes in the season coming up, and we have a sponsor. So I just want to give a quick shout out to Freeman Signature Brokers at freemansignature.com. As our sponsor, they're gladly fronting what we need to do to get this off the ground. So I want to give them a shout out. Freeman Signature is Canada's first and only true national food service focused sales and marketing agency. With over 95 years of experience representing top quality brand name products, their dynamic team will help you meet and exceed your expectations. At Freeman, they are passionate, knowledgeable experts in the field, striving for excellence and leading the industry. When it comes to technology-driven, partnered with industry-leading clients, strategically aligned with core distributors, engaged with key business operators. They offer complete in-house national services to their business partners. And I can attest, I have been a customer of theirs in the past, and I can validate everything I just said there. And a special shout out to the owner there, Serge Lebrec, and the president, Philip Matera, for their vision to sponsor this. As I said earlier, we have Jay Ashton. Thanks for being here, Jay. I'm going to read out a quick bio for you, though. Like I have this.
Is this like a bio? Okay.
This is like is it a bio or is it an intro? I really like this. You know, I put this together. Way back. Some of it is publicly available. Some of it is, I don't have a team of writers behind me.
Did you get like stuff I don't know?
I think this should sound somewhat familiar. All right, so let me go through this, and then we'll get started on our topic.
If it starts out with Swift Current, I'm gonna get. We'll be talking.
I don't mention anything about where you live or who does your hair. We're good. Okay.
Okay.
All right. So Jay Ashton, the founder of Ashton Media, stands as the quintessential voice of food service and is known as Canada's restaurant guy, with over 34 years of experience in food service and in the hospitality industry. Jay's global recognition includes accolades like being named among the 50 most successful personalities globally, wow, and securing the title of Canada's top food service influencer. His prominence is further amplified by hosting one of the most revered podcasts, I've been on this, the Late Night Restaurant Show, where he regularly shares his insights, influencing thousands throughout the industry. Jay recently established the Food Service and Hospitality Podcasters Group. I'm also a part of this. This pioneering project aims to unite podcasters across the industry, promoting mutual support and amplifying collective success, thereby nurturing a vibrant community of innovative voices. And as a keynote speaker, Jay captivates audiences with his deep understanding of the industry's evolution, especially the transformative role of technologies like AI. His speeches are not just informative, but a source of inspiration, encouraging professionals to embrace innovation and adapt to the rapidly changing environment. His legacy, characterized by his brand as Canada's voice of food service, continues to inspire, shape the hospitality industry's future. Through his contributions and visionary projects, Jay embodies the spirit of innovation and leadership, leaving an impact for everyone he works with. How'd I do?
Wow.
Is that you?
I don't know if you do. I hope that's not my obituary one day.
No. It's far too long for an obituary or an epitaph.
So, Richard, have you done the hand test? Have you done the hand test to show? Have you done the hand thing ever?
No.
So let's start your show off with this. Okay, so see the 2 lines on your hands here?
Yep.
Mirror those up and close your hands.
Okay.
And you notice one finger is longer than the other?
Yeah. Is it this finger?
Okay. Yeah, you got one finger longer than the other, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, take the shorter hand,
Yeah.
put it close to your face, and tell it to grow 8 times.
Okay.
Seriously, just try it. Just say grow, 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 grow.
Grow, 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 grow. That's 8.
Like, seriously, look at it. Grow, tell it to grow.
Okay. Grow.
Okay, now put it together. Your hands together.
Did we teach anybody anything here? I don't know.
That's the power of a positive mind.
I love the power of a positive mind. Thanks for being here. This is super important to have you as our first guest on the show.
I'm honored, dude.
To be Canada's restaurant guy on the 86 podcast, which is Canada's food service podcast, from my perspective. It's really great. But I want to talk about something serious today, though, because each one of my shows, I really want to focus on having a great topic to talk about, not just two guys, talking about the industry vaguely. I really want to I want to dive into something here. And I told you ahead of time so that you could be, in the mind space to do this. I want to talk about dynamic pricing. You know that in the news recently, Wendy's came out and said, "Oh, we're going to do dynamic pricing or whatever," and then quickly backtracked from it. I don't know who their PR team is, but I don't think they had that one like firmly, together. Other than the fact that maybe they are, maybe they're like, we got everybody talking about Wendy's. Yeah. So here we are talking about Wendy's. I guess no publicity or all publicity is good publicity. There's no such thing as bad publicity. I don't know. But we see examples.
I think that was Andy Warhol.
Is it?
I think that was Andy Warhol that said that. Yeah.
Now in the food service industry, so for people like, we all know what dynamic pricing is. Like, I don't need to explain it. I'm not going to dive into the details of what it is, but we definitely have examples in our industry of dynamic pricing. If you think of simple things like happy hour, go and get a discounted beer, or even early bird specials. I used to work at a restaurant that had early bird specials. We call it the gray hair specials, but
I was going to say the silver hair.
I'm sure every part of Canada has a different color of the hair to match the age group. But yeah, the blue hair specials. So we used to have those at this little French restaurant I used to work at. Fantastic little place, Chez Michel. But hey, listen, those are promoted and those are very transparent. You know what I mean? Like you can come in and get, a bucket of beer for $10 or whatever, knowing full well that that's a discount off the price. And you can even, in a lot of cases, even see save you how much money. Now, each province has rules when it comes to alcohol and happy hour and stuff like that. I know Ontario is brutal. I was just on vacation in Aruba. Their happy hours are it's anything goes. So it was exciting.
It's all the time.
On the other side of the coin, though, we have dynamic pricing in hotels and airlines and in rideshare, which aren't very transparent. We call it surge pricing, but we know that if you're leaving the bar at 3:00 in the morning and you're trying to catch a rideshare back, catch an Uber. Can we say brand? We can say brand names. I think we can. Catch an Uber back. That it probably costs you more to get back than it did to get there because of there's more people trying to leave at the same time. So they understand that. We know that the earlier seats booked on a flight are less expensive than the later seats, but it's not necessarily communicated as to how much. Book this flight now, and it'll be $1,000 cheaper than if you booked it last minute. Like they don't say that. It's not very transparent. We don't know how much more it's going to cost to leave the bar at the end of the night. We don't know all these different things. So I feel like that's your two kind of what's going on right now things. But there are ways of managing it. If you look at it from like the food service point of view, like there is technology behind this. I know that you dive. I'm going to teach you something here, but there are platforms out there. I have two examples of platforms out there that can help restaurateurs or even, well, not restaurateurs per se, but like food service, industry, work with this. One is called Sauce, and Sauce uses machine learning to change the prices on delivery orders. So if you're operating on that type of platform,
that's cool.
And it can even vary between different locations. So now Sauce, like in their platform description, they say machine learning. They don't say AI specifically. So
is that the fancy way we say it now? Machine learning?
I don't know. Like, is machine learning just, simply looking at patterns and evaluating, or is AI looking at the future? I'm not too sure. I know. In the audience is Tim O'Callahan. He works at 86 with us. He's our developer, and he's probably screaming at his screen the difference between machine learning and AI because that's his field. But anyways, and then there's another one called. You ready for this name? Dynamite. Dynamite. I guess it's like try to take a rip off of dynamic, but in dynamite. Anyways, weird name. I guess the name doesn't matter. Like Uber. Like what does Uber mean? Anyways,
Yeah.
Other than more, or somehow more.
Uber, cool.
Anyways, a dynamite uses occupancy to define the costs. And it uses AI that gives recommendations dish by dish. And this is one that I think is kind of interesting. It's famously used by Atlantis in Dubai. Yeah. And so to define the cost, because that is one thing that operators, you know this from your years of helping operators become more profitable. You know that knowing your costs is the only way to set a price, right? You can't just willy-nilly a price out there.
Yeah, you can't. You have to really get you got to know everything nowadays. And recently talking with a gentleman, and like this is it's a hot topic, but it's a pretty simplistic topic. I find like it's hot right now. It's got the buzz out there, but I do believe that we have to tear it down. We have to kind of peel it apart, understand why that we're trying to do this, and then what's the benefit out of it, and if it is going to grab. The worst thing that we can do, and I find this in the history, because I also have a history degree in art, is that we look back into certain situations that has caused us to, react this way, let's say within the industry. And I think when you look at these kind of practices or introductions of these kind of things into our industry, is that we have to look at why. Like, why is this doing this? And have we done something like this before? The best thing I can say to operators or anyone out there that is doing these kind of activities, or maybe they're shifting their business this way to dynamic pricing, is to be 100% clear with your guest. The worst thing you can do right now is not tell them the full truth behind it. And we saw that with the airlines and different things that are out there industry that really introduced this many, many, many years ago, but really didn't come out front with it or talk about what it is. When people are caught off guard with these kind of situations, or they're caught off without the full truth, that's when it becomes a problem. And I think the more that you're transparent and you come out and say, here's what we're doing this for, and here's why. And at the end of the day, it's about our service and our food. And we're trying to provide the best that we can in those areas. And by doing that, we have to do this. And be 100% clear with it, I think is the best recommendation that I have.
Yeah,
but if you're trying to hide behind it, I think it's going to be a problem.
When you think of the brand position behind, like Air Canada, for example, do you think of Air Canada as, hey, man, I'm going to get a great price? Or do we understand that when we're booking airline tickets, we know that we don't know if we're getting a great price? I want to talk about this in a second, because I'm going to circle back to this particular part. I do want to, let's talk some strategy first, and then I'm going to come back down to this downside to it, because you are touching on something that I really want to talk about. But let's talk about strategy. So if you're a restaurant owner, or just food service operator, I don't want to say restaurant owner, that's too small of a thing. But if you're a hospitality operator, do you lower your prices at slow times? Or do you raise your prices at slow times on maybe specific products? Maybe you got, let's say you're a restaurant and you don't do flaming saganaki really well at slow times, because there's nobody in the restaurant to see it, and so that's no fun. 2, the guy in the kitchen doesn't have the plates. I don't know. It's if you're going to have saganaki at a restaurant, it's best served when they're busy, when they got lots of clients going on. They got lots of these going out the door, so do you use the pricing? If you lower the pricing when you're not busy, do you think that would attract you to fill that void? Or is it just a finite amount of guests a day and you're just trying to,
it's a great question.
What would you recommend there?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I personally am not a big believer in discounting anything on the menus. I've never been a big fan of it. I believe it says more than maybe we want to say when we drop pricing or we discount things. It's almost I say this all the time. It's kind of like the social media post of the people putting the plates in front of them, looking at you, saying, "Hey, this is the picture of the day of our
Yeah.
items," which I think it looks like it's a plea. Please come in. Is that please come in and eat our food? Which we want people to come in, but we need to tell a better story. And I think when you look at discounting products, no matter if it's within dynamic pricing or not, I think it speaks a lot about your brand. It speaks a lot about your business. And I think if you can um, put a fair price out for a great experience and great food, it will just do the justice. If you're having to lure people in by discounts, I think you have a bigger problem than the fact that you're not having guests in.
Okay.
When you look at like loyalty programs, Richard, like Starbucks loyalty program,
Yeah.
I recently met with a guy that created that and that app, and it's all about foot traffic. It's not about discounts. You look at how they do their business. It's not about discounts. It's about increased traffic. And I think we have to shift over to that. Now, if dynamic pricing, if you're in a sensitive market that is going to increase your foot traffic, and it is your formula, I think it's short term and it's not going to be a long term strategy. I think you have a short term strategy in mind.
Do you think that there's value in using the pricing strategy to guide guests to a better experience? Like, I know that you and I when we work with operators, I remember, I'll tell you a story. I know that where are we on time? We're okay for time.
Keep going. Richard, we can talk. Me and you've talked many years.
I used to consult restaurants, and back in my consulting days, I used to work with this restaurant. It's no longer there anymore because they retired and left the business and sold out. Anyways, so I can tell the story without hurting anybody's feelings. Up in Collingwood, Ontario, I worked with the Admiral's Post to help them become more profitable. They were struggling. So they invited me in, and I was talking with their staff one day about the difference between, like kind of upselling and like how to sell without being a sell, that kind of stuff. And I asked them, I said, "Hey guys, what's the number one best experience on your menu? Like if you got a customer who's going to eat one thing, what's going to give them the smile on the face?" And they were like, "Hands down, man, like our fish and chips is the best ever." I'm like, "Okay, great, good stuff." I said, "What's the worst? Like if you're going to serve a dish on the menu that everyone either is going to hate, complain, you hate the look of it, like
that's a really good question.
It's a piece of junk on a plate. Like what's your dog?" Yeah. And they had no qualms about it. It was this fish pie. It was like this bechamel sauce with like fish and dill and lemon and covered in puff pastry. It looked like a dog's breakfast, and it always got the disappointing, feel from customers. They're just like, So I went over their POS machine. I ran last night's sales, and I'm like, "You sold 18 of them." 18 people were allowed to eat this piece of junk menu item last night. Why did you let that happen? As a server, it's your job, 100% your job, to guide every guest to the best experience. Can we use dynamic pricing to do that? Like I said earlier, as an operator who might not do a really great job at, complex dishes or different things like that, group sharing, is it a good idea to up the price on these things to discourage people to buy them, or lower the price on other things to encourage people to buy them that they're going to produce well when the restaurant doesn't have a full complement of staff? I think that's a big strategy for restaurant owners to talk about amongst themselves. Like I know that every place is going to be different, but I feel like that guest experience is the number one thing, right?
Yeah, I think this is one of the best lines I've heard in a long time. Is what's the it's similar to this, Richard, is what's the cost of the inaction to do this, is what I would be saying and asking. What are you losing by not doing this? And if are you losing a lot or are you losing a few? Yeah. And it comes to people and guest experiences. So I think it needs to be, one, you need to have a strategy. If this is something that restaurants are considering, you need a full-blown strategy. Do not go into this and think it's just like, and then I guarantee when you look at airlines and other people that use dynamic pricing models, is that there's a strategy behind it. There's a plan behind it. But it is, you're going to have to look at what's going to, I go back to it. It's the foot traffic. The foot traffic and the quality of product is going to drive your growth. It's not going to be necessarily the dynamic pricing, because you're not going to have as we all know, the industry is built off of pennies, right? And we know that you can capture some more pennies, let's say, if you increase the pricing on a product at a certain time, if it is slow or busy, and you may gain some more. But are you creating that experience? Does it shift the experience? Does it shift that they came in once and then they know the price is increased and they feel like you need to be catering to them more, like they're in, like they need to be the ones, and then you notice that price increase and then they have a bad experience within that. I almost feel that there is so many factors that are applied to dynamic pricing. So let's say you go into a place, Richard, and you have the price and you have the product, and we do know that there is an enormous amount of repeat guests. I still am baffled by those numbers. They haven't shake, but we do know most of restaurant guests go to the same place over again, and they typically order the same thing. So that's crazy. Now, obviously, we have felt some of a shift out over the years where we do know that people are more experimental and they go out to different locations and they have different products. But typically, people go to the certain location and always have the certain product. No different than when you go and get your coffee in the morning. I guarantee it, Richard, it's always the same coffee with many sugar or cream. It's always the same. Or if you're a black coffee drinker like I am, probably the same thing. Yeah, right. So now what happens is, now we look at those price increases. So the one time I go in and my coffee is $4, next time I go in at that busy time or slow time and the price is increased to $4.50, but my experience has dropped, right? The server isn't having a great day, or my coffee is cold, or whatever the case is. Is that equating to a good experience? I don't think so. And then you're double whamming them. You're talking about there's a lot of dynamics here, man.
See, you're talking about value now. This is the thing, like value to a repeat customer. They're repeating the customer because there's value there. Like I work in the food manufacturing industry. We make products that we sell to restaurants, and one of the things that thank you. One of the things I tell my clients when they sample my product, you can see them. They smile. I say, "Oh, we're selling smiles here. This is easy." But they're also saying, "Man, that's good." And I'm like, "Your guests are going to say the same thing." Do you want your guests to bite into something and say, "Meh," or do you want them to bite into it and say, "Oh man, I got to have that again"? And it's that I got to have that again experience that we're looking for as operators. But there has to be consistency in the value. So, like, let me get onto this for a second. if your value, because you're talking about value, and I think that value is
it's the one thing
it has to be consistent. Richard. If you're like 7-Eleven, their claim to fame is being 7-Eleven. You knew that they were going to be open between 7-Eleven. It's a convenience store. The mark of convenience for them was knowing when they were going to be open. For you going into your coffee shop in the morning, there's value there. You can get a parking spot or drive-through. It's not too bad. You know what I mean? Like you're going to get that. You're going to get that coffee. You're going to get that smile. You're going to get on the thing. So there's some sort of consistency in value there. I think with the dynamic pricing, the downside to it could be, especially if you're communicating it, letting people know that it's more expensive, or they figured out that it's more expensive during busy times, if they're aware of it, you could lose that value prop. And you could no longer have that value consistency that you need to stay in business. You
really could. Now, the other thing that this really also makes me think about, Richard, is the whole Google pricing that Google just put on their site now on your restaurant. They have a Google average pricing on your dish or on your meal, right? And I think that plays into the same thing, is that you're now really pushing the experience towards the dollar, not the food or the overall atmosphere of the restaurant or the value, as you say. We're focused so much on the price points. I one day I'm kind of with the dynamic pricing. I understand the need for driving growth. So let's try a different angle of this, Richard. Let's look at it this way.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna try something different here. Okay, so let's look at the overall sales one night you're able to capture, because it's not going to be significant in jumps on a dynamic pricing. It's not like you're going to go up $5 a dish. You're probably going to go up a few pennies a dish or a few cents. So at the end of the night, you're probably capturing maybe $100 more of growth. Now, if we focused our energy more on the branding and the overall experience for that customer, the values we say, can we draw in a new person? Because that's typically like one or two new people into your business. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, are we offsetting the the mindset or the direction where we want to focus on bringing people into the restaurant? Should we focus on maybe grabbing two new customers, then not increasing the price on the ones that are already in the restaurant? Do you know what I'm saying? Like, does that, like, I can go and get two more customers. Ideally, I want way more every night in my restaurant than getting the customers in there right now and increasing the price because they came at a certain time of the day. That's a tough one to focus on, right? Like, that's what I'm saying is, like, I think it's right now needs to be fleshed out more. We need to look at it. We need to understand it. We need to look at what the perspectives of it. If it is something that we're going to embrace within our industry, it is going to have to start at a very slow rate. It's going to have to be 100% transparent. People are going to have to explain it thoroughly to their guests and to their brand.
Well, I think it's already out there in the broader food service context. Like, I think if you look at, especially if you're on an app for like a delivery app or whatever, like Uber Eats or Skip or whatever, and you go in and you see their images of their storefront images, whatever, they're all like stock photos, or they're, these are all ghost kitchens or whatever. And I think that they're, so there's no value consistency in that. You're literally picking by the name. Oh, Maria's Tacos. Well, I'm looking for Mexican,
See, I use
Maria sounds great.
Yeah, like I use third party when I work with clients and I work with customers. I look at third party, like that whole third party delivery app model. I actually don't look at it as a revenue generator. I know this is crazy. I actually look at it as a marketing channel for your business. Because I don't believe that you should actually bank your overall P&L on a secure and hefty profit from that channel, right? And that will eliminate a lot of the complaints that we get that they take so much and this and that from it. Perfect. It is what it is. But you know what? It's a marketing channel to get people to come into your restaurant, to share the experiences you have, to not have the stock photos that don't look like what it is, or the really bad photos of the products that are on that app. That is not what you want to do. You want to share what it looks like, so people are going, you know what, I'm going to go out, because we do need the foot traffic to come into the restaurants, because it increases when the profits go way up. We know that, right? I use that as actually a marketing channel. So use it as, if we have it, and in whatever you make off of that might be the first marketing channel that you can actually show a complete dollar amount on an ROI. So, but it is where you treat it as a marketing way of marketing your business out to a mass audience that is on those apps, and they do a great job of advertising. If you do it right, they advertise your brand. Now use that to get the people in the door. What we do is, we were hoping on it, and through COVID and things like this, we relied on it so much as a profit generator, because it really was, a lot of the cases, a lifeline to what we were having, because we couldn't have the foot traffic.
It definitely it kept people in business.
It did, and then we complained because they took so much from it. But it is what it is. But I do believe we have to look at it as I do with my people, is that it's a marketing avenue, and do it right, because it's typically on everyone's phone. It's typically, if you're doing the right things within that group, they'll promote you out. And then all of a sudden your brand is on everyone's phone. And as you know, the top things that you want to do as a brand, especially in our industry, is get on people's phones and get in their house as a brand. And then you just flush it through, and you just keep promoting it through. Using that as your generated profit to save your restaurant today, there's just not enough there. And that's why we have people complaining and things like this.
Well, but I think brand loyalty and that value proposition is the best thing. So I bounced this topic off of I
love that.
I have a 15-year-old daughter, and I bounced this topic off her yesterday as we were planning the show, and she said, you know what, she said she disliked surge pricing. She would more prefer a rewards program. And I said, yeah, sure. Like you go to
100%.
Starbucks or you go to McDonald's or whatever, they all have rewards programs. But for a regular operator who may have one or two
Yeah.
locations, a rewards program for them is too expensive to incorporate. But I disagree with that.
Yeah.
As
Well,
I thought
but
about that later, hang on. I thought about
yeah.
this later. I'm like, you know what the best rewards program is? I know I love cutting you off. Eh? It's like,
It's just like, wow,
I love,
flashbacks.
from our old shows days.
Exactly.
No, I think restaurants do have reward programs. They just not, and I'm going to pick up on something you said too, and I can put these two things together here. They do. If you go into a restaurant and if at the end of the meal, the chef or the owner or whatever comes out with a round of limoncellos for you, as a little, thank you for being there. That's a rewards program. People don't understand the value in that. Or here's a free, try this appetizer. Like, I got a new menu item coming, like kind of like giving you that. And if you took that to another level, a more thoughtful level and said, look, I know that Jay's in tonight. He usually comes in with X person. He's got two others with him tonight. I would make sure to go after those two people to get new guests, right?
Yeah.
Hey, here's my shot. I'm going to shoot it on Jay's guests.
I agree with you, Richard. And I think when you look at loyalty program, it's funny. I was talking to a lady yesterday. She says, and I mentioned, because we're meeting with a big client tomorrow. And I said, she said, I said, when you look at their overall operation right now, I think right now, as we see this, we have to kind of peel it back even further. Everyone wants to be a part of a community today, right? And there's this feel of being separated and lonely. So whatever ways that we can join a community, if it is a loyalty program from a coffee place or a loyalty program from a retail place, or just joining a group on social, and that might even be questionable today because it has been kind of whitewashed in a way, but we're typically looking for community involvement. So what loyalty programs really are is the new way of saying, come join our community, come be a part of our group. And it's just funny, I was mentioning this to this lady yesterday, and she said, I think of loyalty programs, I think of coupons. And I said, you know what? I do too, because I remember the days you cut coupons out and ripped them out. You remember the coupon books? That's not loyalty today. Loyalty today is about driving traffic into the business and being more brand aware and sharing people the experiences that you're missing by not going there. And that's what Starbucks does. Starbucks app isn't about anything other than driving foot traffic into that restaurant, into the restaurants, to get people to order and buy the little gums and the little candies and the chips and everything else and the big expensive drinks, because there's visual aids to help increase those. That's what that's for. So when we look at restaurants today, I'm with you, Richard. I think they need to look at loyalty programs to increase the frequency of those people, but also to get those people to part of their community. Because what happens is when you're on a team and the team is having a bad day, you're still rooting for them. You still root for the team. You're still a part of that team through good times and bad times. But when you're a newcomer to that team, you kind of feel, or not a part of that community, you kind of feel a little left out. Like, what's going on? I want to be a part of it. I want to join this thing. Yeah. Focus on that, opposed to, worrying about the pricing so much. I think that's what you work on. Your daughter is 100% right. Loyalty programs today work. You see it. You actually see it. Usually when the economies have, or there's a crack, let's say, within the industry, you'll see different things come out like this. And typically it's loyalty programs that we really haven't done an enormously amazing job up to the last maybe 5 years on really reinventing the loyalty program to be more community based. So that means every morning the loyalty app, that's mostly app based, an app will message you and say, hey, have a great morning. Think about us while you're going to work. Like, it's not about the discount.
But I don't think your average restaurant can do that. Yeah, I don't think the average restaurant
there is systems. There's systems out there today, Richard. I think there is systems out there today. I recommend people Google restaurant loyalty programs and figure out how easy it is. And then, because here's the other thing that you can do with loyalty programs, you can geotag them too. So when people come within the vicinity of your restaurant, it can SMS you the message of what's going on at your location. Yeah. And especially for independents, it's really big for independents needing to combat the franchise models that already have these resources.
There are store card, I guess, is a good one. Although this is a platform for reward cards to be on. Like I have a Canadian Tire or whatever rewards card, whatever. But Stocard, the app that I keep that data in, prompts me every once in a while. I'm sure Canadian Tire is telling them to, but like every once in a while, it's like, hey man, did you think to come in for fertilizer or whatever? But so like, I guess the bottom line is
about. But look, Richard, but you're a part of that community now. Like you're
no,
part
I know,
of them.
I know.
Right? Like
There's
this connection, right? But there's this connection that you have with them, no matter if you go there or not. And I think when you look at restaurants today, that's one of the big things to have those repeat customers, because that's you nailed it earlier when you said when they're in your restaurant, you take care of them, but the number one goal is to make sure that they come back the next time they go out. Yeah. And that is the goal, right? Because your acquisition cost are so much cheaper on a repeat customer than it is on a new one by far.
I agree. We're 35 minutes into this. I want to wrap it up soon, but I do want to talk about this one last.
Talk to you all day. I love this stuff, Richard.
I know we can do this. You and I could do this all day, but I think the mind can only endure what the butt can take, and people are going to be sitting a long way through this. So the last thing, because we talk about, the results of a well-run business are the profits, and part of the elements of a well-run restaurant are obviously traffic, but also margins. Margins are important in restaurants, and I think away from dynamic pricing and loyalty programs, there are other ways to manage margins. And people say, like the dinner special or whatever, or managing inventory, stale inventories through features is fine, but one of my favorite things for a restaurant to do to maintain their margins and deliver that guest experience they're looking for is to do special menus and food festivals. I used to work at the Charcoal Steakhouse in Kitchener, and John Sowden, the manager of the Italian part of that, the Del Dante's part of that, he used to have these food festivals, and he would, like when the strawberries were in season or the asparagus was in, he'd have menus that were just essentially focused around this. They were always at a higher price point than everything else in the menus, very transparent, but you would never catch a guest dead not trying one of those items. And we used to make so much money doing that. Not only would it drive great value in the store because people were coming to see these things, so it's like a loyalty program in a way of getting something unique, but also too is a great way for the restaurant. So I feel like we don't need to use dynamic pricing in all food service operators. If you're working on Skip and Uber and you're ghost kitchening it and you're like hustling that side of it, you need to get, I would pick out of all that, probably sauce and their machine learning.
Definitely a system.
And get a system in there to make sure that you're maximizing those margins dish by dish in a non-transparent way. But if you are an operator where you've got butts and seats, I think you need to loyalty program up, whether it's an in-store program or something like you're saying, or just literally manage the guest experience through special menus and treating guests specially and recognize 100%. Them when they come back. I think that's a big thing.
I think the thing also is that we can just be real about it too, right? Like, and that's the beauty about today where we're living in our industry, is that you can do, and you don't see this. And this is the crazy stuff that I see, is that we don't see operators getting on social and saying, hey guys, we're introducing a new loyalty program here at Richard's Restaurant. And you know what, here's why we're trying to do this. And here's what we want to do. People have, so empathy is one of the big things that you want to look at when you're creating content, is really get people and being true and honest with people on telling them what you're trying to do. Hey guys, we want to drive more business in our restaurant. We're a big part of the local community here. We love supporting and we love catering to you. We love you. We love our restaurant. But what we need to do is we're going to introduce a new loyalty program. And here's what it looks like. And here's what it is about. If someone said that, Richard, and it was 1 minute or 2 minutes on social, posted on their social channels or posted on TikTok or wherever else, and told people out there, how many people would be like, you know what, that's awesome.
I think authenticity in a world, we live in an inauthentic world. Like everything we do, all the doom scrolling and all the social media and even the regular media, like everything is just so inauthentic. To bring that high level of transparency and authenticity to the moment, man, you're right. I think you're onto something. Hey, and that's powerful? Why, right? That's why you're on the show.
Well, the other thing I just want to shout out, because you said something about festivals. Here's one other thing here, tip. I got to share this with you because it's coming up to this season that we're upon us. And I say this every year, small town parades. You have a local parade in your community, and it doesn't cost anything because they typically are free. The whole community goes out and I go to a couple small ones from my hometown. I have never seen a restaurant in there handing out samples of their food. You have a catered audience, thousands of people sitting there in a parade. And I know they're old. So this is an old school tactic, but you have your QR codes up there. You have your social media channels on the truck or vehicle or parade float. You're handing out samples of whatever the chef just cooked it. You have your chef in their white standing on the trailer, on the float, shaking hands. The owner's walking around, inviting people to the restaurant. If I don't know of a better way to get into a local community than a parade, and we're upon a parade season in Canada,
We are. The Elmville Maple Syrup Festival is coming up. I'm actually a town councillor here in my town of Wasaga Beach.
So you should start a parade.
Well, no, we do. We have a Santa Claus parade. They get us to sit up on this old fire truck and we go through town. And I see all the local businesses there. But you're right. You're absolutely right. I never.
What's missing is you see everything from the plumber guy to the tractor factory.
Yeah, you do. You see, this is such a great idea.
But where is the missing restaurant guy? Like, come on,
love it.
Get on it, because you know what? You're not going to be busy because the whole community's out at the parade. So you might as well get there. You create little sample things, you know, or maybe not. It's your choice. But I want to feed, and restaurateurs, they want to feed stuff. So hand out something. Work with your suppliers, get the samples for free, and get them on the trucks and get out there and promote it and talk about your new items. And that the whole thing is that slow motion. It's like a perfect slow motion of a brand drive by you for that time. You won't forget stuff. And we don't see that. And these are the things that when we look at building the brand up and then also looking at that whole dynamic pricing, as long as you're true, simple, authentic, and clear, and you communicate out to your community, your restaurant, your customers, you're good. You're good.
Yeah.
And then you don't have to, like, if it is something that you want to do with dynamic pricing, just be true. 100%. Be clear to them. And that's what Wendy's didn't do, is they didn't come out and they said, here's why we're doing this. And we did the same thing in the art world back when we bought the Voice of Fire remember the white stripe down the side of a barn, that we bought the Voice of Fire from Barnett Newman for $20-some million back in the 80s. And everyone said, why did we do that? Well, the curator at the time said, you wouldn't understand if we told you. Well, that was a faux pas on his side, because you should tell people why we bought it and the reasoning behind it. And that's why it's so much money. That's why we need to explain why we're doing certain things in dynamic pricing. As long as you're telling people why in clear, people will then accept it or not accept it, but they're more likely to accept it if you're true and clear with it.
I feel like that's a valuable leadership lesson. Like, we teach this when you and I talk leadership to people, and we talk about bringing people in as a part of it rather than later as a hired hand. You know what I mean? To bring people in the process. I want to thank you very much for being here today. To be the very first guest on the very first episode of the 86 podcast, Canadian Foodservice Podcast. And a special shout out again. Thanks, Freeman Signature at freemansignature.com, food service brokers, for seeing the vision here, for seeing the opportunity to really talk about things that matter to Canadian restaurant and food service professionals and operators. So I think we've got a fun project here. I hope to have you back on the show at some point. I'm sure you will be a fixture. Hopefully, maybe not too big of a fixture, because we want to tell other stories, but definitely we'll have you back on the show. So this is episode 1 in the can, everybody.
Well, I just want to mention before you wrap up here, I just want to congratulate you on your show, your first show. I've done tons of shows with you over the years, and you've always said yes to every time I ask you to be on the show. So anytime you want me back, I'm more honored to be here. And I'm a big believer everyone needs a podcast, and I'm so proud to watch you move into this space, because you're an incredible guest, but now you're an incredible interviewer. And all the best to this amazing show, and what you're doing is incredible. So congratulations, and I'm so proud to watch you rock the world in this space. That
means a lot to me. Well, everybody, that's 86, the podcast, the first episode in the can. It'll be on all the social channels. It'll be out everywhere. I'll be cutting this up and sharing it like a little sample in a restaurant.
I love it.
Thanks again, my friend. Take care.
No problem.